start recording at the same time. And we should be live.
All right.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a bit of a mad week because we had exciting news on the Ember front this week with the
Oh,
Guides
yeah.
app.
Yeah, the Guides app is launched now. One more step towards um, fewer people needing to ask questions on Stack Overflow.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think that's negligible. I would like to think that we have such good resources that that's actually one of the reasons why there's not a ton of momentum on Stack Overflow. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's an interesting kind of
don't
catch
have any numbers.
22. And maybe it's a good kind of segue into the discussion about the question that we put on the Discuss forum right now, because I think one of the things that was mentioned in there is that a lot of people actually look at tags on Stack Overflow to see how active a community is,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
seems a little bit counterintuitive if to anybody who's kind of statistically minded. I'm not really statistically minded, but
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of raise my eyebrow a little bit.
It raises my eyebrow as well, but that wasn't a thing that I had considered. For context, we were discussing whether it was or not it's a good idea to take old questions from like Ember 1 or things that are relevant in Ember 3 that are where Ember 2 focused, and mark them Ember 1 or Ember 2 as their tag. And there were a couple of suggestions that I didn't ever think of and would have never thought of, like people use Stack Overflow uh, tag totals in articles about which frameworks are worth paying attention to. And I don't really want to hurt those numbers. So I think we'll
Yeah.
have to figure out, maybe we don't remove tags, maybe we just add tags, except unless there's like really old questions that we just think should be buried as opposed to having a more recent answer added to them. So,
Well, I suppose
uh,
that's the kind of thing where when we were talking about this last week, I was thinking of it as like, let's come up with a policy. Let's like make this a thing that we do generally. But
mm-hmm.
maybe it needs to be something that's more like the bit that I think in our last week's episode, or whatever you want to call this, we said, oh, we wanted to add Ember 1, but there were 5 already and you can only have 5 tags on a question.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the question is, do we remove the Ember.js tag? And maybe kind of my feeling now is that in cases where they may be old or we want to remove them from the search, we have to think of it on a case by case basis. Does
Mm-hmm,
does
mm-hmm.
this question hinder us more than helping our numbers? If that makes sense.
Yep, it does. It does. And I think that's definitely an insight I got from this discussion here on there were some points here in that regard as well as in the community Slack. They
Oh
were
yeah,
really useful. And
yeah,
one other person, Gaurav, pointed out that uh, new people new to Ember might not use the tags at all. Um, and so in that case, adding tags, adding notes, adding more answers, if our aim is to help new users, those are things that will assist, and they're actually not going to be as affected by us switching tags out. So um, anyway, so that brings us to the Discuss forum in general, which, uh, if you've only ever been on Ember Slack or you've been on Stack Overflow, there is yet a third place where some discussion and Q&A happens. And in some ways, the Discuss forum is sort of the happy medium uh, between Stack Overflow and Slack, in that you can have these big, long conversations that are easy to read, easy for people to respond to asynchronously, but without some of the constraints that are on Stack Overflow.
mm.
So,
Well, yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned this idea of constraints for Stack Overflow. There's also a little bit of an issue where I think I've noticed a few of these questions coming up that people are saying, is there a way for me to mark this as answered? But we
Mm-hmm.
don't have that either. So there's maybe something that we can do to make this a little bit easier for people to use potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely something where, as you say, you don't need to have what's the right amount of um, reputation that you need to answer a question. Sorry, even ask a question on Stack Overflow.
Oh, I don't even remember.
But it's
You might be able to ask a question from the get-go, but things like tagging
yeah,
and whatnot are not really. Mm,
yeah. It kind of splits the user base up to people who have the permissions to do things, which is always a bit
yeah,
bizarre.
yeah. Um, there are also some unanswered questions here, and from time to time, things get cross-posted between the Discuss forum and Stack Overflow as well. So I have one pulled up here that I'm gonna see if it's the same
Mm-hmm.
as on Stack Overflow and whether that one is answered or not. Let me see.
Do you want to share the link and we can?
Yes. Let me send this to you on Slack. All right. There's that. And then
So this is the right-click options. Yeah, this is the one I have open.
and I started scaffolding this out last week with
Mm-hmm.
a similar question on Stack Overflow. So either the person didn't get their answer on Stack Overflow and came to the forum and still didn't have an answer, or this is something that two people have asked, and both of those reasons make it important for us to tackle, I think.
Yes, definitely. So, do we want to tackle it from this perspective or the Stack Overflow one? Because I think I've
Um, Either. It's up to you.
cool. Um, which one do you think has more context? Because I'm gonna just pull up.
Oh, yeah. Um, Let me see if I can find the Stack Overflow one. If you want, this is from a little while ago.
Just trying
Yeah,
to.
kind of write our changes after that. Hmm. It's gonna take me a little bit of time to find it in Stack Overflow, actually. I'm looking now, but I kind of just have to page back in time. So
Oh, I might
why
have
don't
it
we go ahead
here
and get... Oh, you have it?
potentially because I was looking at this right click and is this the one right click and left click options?
I don't see
Or I'm
the Stack
gonna
Overflow one you're
share it
looking at.
with you, and I'm going to open it on here too.
Okay. Also, can you make your text bigger
I always forget
a
how to
little
do
bit,
this.
just a little bit?
Like this.
It's,
Aha.
yeah, there we go. That's helpful. Thank you. Right click and left click option needs. Um, that is the one, I think.
Yeah, I think this is the one that we were looking at last week. Yeah, this looks very similar, doesn't it?
It is very similar. So, I think this is the same event result get table view. Event result get table view. So, I think they are the same author. It looks to me
It looks
their
very
code
similar,
is
doesn't it?
basically the same. Um, but there's a little more context on the Discuss forum one.
Perfect.
So
Right. So,
yeah, so why don't we tackle it on Discuss forum? But we can just copy and paste our answer
perfect.
onto Stack Overflow as well.
Okay. So I've got myself with our little teaching environment. We've got an Ember app ready to go.
Great.
So I suppose the first thing to do is to try and figure out what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So we have I'm going to select any option from the task action icon. Have it use left click only. So they want to be able to select things with left click, but right click to also right click. So if this is the thing, I don't see anything trying to decide if it's a right or a left click in this code.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe they abstracted that out. I think well, the one thing that looks clear is that however they might be doing it, they're doing it with jQuery event listeners. And so I'm interested to see if we can suggest something that uses Ember's click handler actions instead.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think you mentioned something last week that was quite important, though, in this context, where it's like if they're using something that's like a jQuery plugin, maybe to
mhm.
build the rows or something like that,
Right,
then
right,
then it
right.
might be in like my first question, if we were tackling this on just a general like reading this and trying to find out more information, I would ask the question: are you using a jQuery add-on or something like that?
Yep.
And then hopefully if they give us the add-on, then we would be able to try using that same add-on and actually bring them across the finish line to actually get it working. Whereas hopefully we'll be able to come up to something that will be helpful for them, even though we
Right.
don't have that.
So maybe we do both. I'm personally quite interested as well in figuring out how to do this
Okay.
in either application. I've actually not, I don't, have I implemented anything with a right click?
Okay.
I
Well.
don't think I have, so let's give it a try.
Okay. So let's get started with something quite simple. In the application handlebar, we don't need roots in this because it's really just, if we want to do table, is it going to give me an actual table? And then what do we want to do? We want to do like table rows. Is that how you do this? Do you have
Yeah,
to do T body? You do.
I've probably skipped it before,
I
but
always I always forget.
I think technically, let me just double check. I never use tables.
I never use tables either. I always use like add-ons that do the table for me.
Yep, or I use like flex boxes and things.
Oh right, okay.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm just double checking table syntax. This is funny. Uh, okay. Oh, I don't want to be on this. I accidentally opened up W3 School. Here we go. MDN. All right. For the record, if you're learning Ember or web development or anything, not just Ember, MDN, Mozilla Developer Network, is by far the most maintained and up-to-date resource for generally looking things up, like how to do a table properly.
like literally anything web development, if it's not specific to a library like Ember or whatever, I
Yep.
would always search for the thing and then just throw MDN on the Google search
Yep.
at the end,
Me
because like
too, me
just
too.
go
It's almost like
straight
I
to
should add that. Okay, so they didn't actually use a T body, but I don't think it hurts either, so that should be fine.
I'm always confused as to what exactly tables you should be using.
But I think we're good.
I'm just generating the application root so I can have it,
Sure.
because I'm too lazy to create the file myself, which is fine. we go. And then we want to, what are we doing? We're doing model, and we're assuming that we're going to return some sort of array of objects that has name first, one description, a thing that comes first, and cost 55, whatever currency you want to put in there. Am I spelling third wrong too? I am. 50, 45, and 54.
Nice.
Right, so very, very simple test application. npm start. I'm going to give me the thing that I need to do. Oh, is that, I should probably go in here as well. This, yeah.
That helps. Thank you.
Oh, I'm stung again by the Ember developer curse.
The Ember developer curse?
Port 4200 is already in use.
Uh-oh.
I may or may not have been hacking on some things with the new guides app.
Whenever I get that, I frequently give up and just close my terminal.
Just close
Like
the
I
whole
just
thing.
quit it. I just quit it, and it's like, you have processes running. Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure.
I love that.
I don't think there's ever been a time in my life that I tried to force close that, and I had processes running that would have had any problems. So,
I would recommend not doing that in production, but you know. Yeah, I'm very much a.
I don't run production processes from my terminal.
I would recommend that as well. Not to run production from your home machine.
Seems it's much safer if you don't.
Oh,
all right. I'm working on similarly. I have set up a little thing on my side as well because I want to try and figure this out in parallel.
Oh, I have a feeling that I've just been hosed by something.
Huh?
Clear storage. Oh, service workers.
Oh, the service workers.
I recently helped out with an app that was using a service worker.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I needed to unregister that service worker because it works from a... Is it domain and port or is it just domain? Do you know?
I have no idea. The service worker unregistering? Ooh. I don't know. Doesn't it unregister if you do the clear storage? I think unregister service workers.
Yeah, I did the clear storage and the unregister, but yeah, it's one of those ones where that error that I just had.
Mm-hmm.
I probably, like, even a week ago, I probably would have gone, what's wrong? There's something wrong with Ember. No, but it was entirely just local, you know.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is our beautiful. Oh, look at this app. Lovely.
Oh, it's great.
So I was thinking that we should probably make this a component for each row, because that'll give us the ability to kind of do the click handling.
Sure.
So let's generate that component for ourselves. My computer.
I am busy looking at the native DOM helper.
Ooh.
Click documentation things for Ember. Not native DOM, native to Ember. The the ones where you can say in your component, like, click or on click or You know what I'm talking
I
about?
know
I need to
exactly.
rewatch that talk by
Ooh, I'm in
Marie
the wrong place.
Chatfield so that
Oh
I
yeah.
can use the right term and like the right terms for it. Okay,
Uh,
let's see.
I have
How's
a quick pro tip if anybody's not done this before, anybody
uh
who's watching in the future. So I've just kind of cut the table row out of here and I'm replacing it with table row. And for now, at least, um, you can't just copy and paste that straight into here because
oh yeah.
every component is going to be wrapped by a, a div, I think. So what you need to do is you either do two things. You either do tag name blank that says it won't be wrapped with a div, or you can specify the tag name here, and in this case it's a tr, and then you can just get rid of this one because then it's like wrapped with the table row, which
Yep.
makes a lot of sense to me,
Yep.
which is quite
And
nice.
if you're not doing uh if you tagless components have a couple drawbacks
Yeah,
where it makes more sense when you unless you have a reason to need to use a tagless component without any wrapper, it's better, I think, to specify the elements. It's just easier. It's
yeah,
like there's fewer gotchas, and the gotchas are rare, but they've bitten me before.
yeah. It's one of those ones where it was designed for this exact sort of reason where you
Mm-hmm.
want to wrap it in something other than div. And if you're doing
Yep.
something slightly out of the design, you sometimes get burnt. And it's like, you should ask yourself, do you really need to do it this way? And if you can get away with doing it the way that it was designed, you probably should, because then that means when we update it, when we fix it in the near future, you'll be able to get the new version quite easily, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used that same technique for SVGs.
Mm.
I wrap my SVG components in a group tag because if you put a div inside of an SVG, it doesn't go so well. So, all right. So
So,
I also have a little bit of things scaffolded out so that I can try to figure out
oh, I
the
see.
click side of things.
Fix.
So I think to me the question that we both have to figure out, or rather we have to figure out for both questions, is how do you do a right click that the a click handler can catch? Because when I right click on any page on the internet that's normal, it pulls up my options to do things like inspect the element and save the page and you know take a screenshot and all that. Uh, it's catching it, I think, before it ever gets to my page. Is my hypothesis.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
so
So you mean this thing here?
let me see. Yeah, uh-huh. So I think that's probably some sort of window level configuration is my guess. And no matter what, we are going to have to figure out what that is.
Oh, I should have put MDN on the end of that search. How to git.
uh, mm-hmm.
So
Able right click. Wow, this is not super.
yeah, this is
There's a
more
lot of
like this is the one where it's like stop people from right clicking. But
right.
it's interesting because what we want is the other side of this. The
I'm gonna.
website is capturing right click, and we want to
I'm.
know how to capture right clicks.
I'm saying I think we should bake that into our language. So like HTML catch right click maybe.
Oh, that's a great idea. HTML catch
Oh,
right.
that's a very old answer, but I'm going to click on it anyway.
Are you you're on Stack Overflow? Well, this is the thing about HTML. It's been around forever, and
That's
old things still
true.
work.
That's true.
Um, I have a question for you
On context
that
menu.
I just don't. Something I never understood about Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
So, if you can see on my screen here, there's a
Yeah.
duplicate. Where's
A duplicate what?
so this question
Oh.
is marked as a duplicate. How do I capture a right click event in JavaScript? Okay.
Uh-huh.
which of these links is to the question that it's been marked as a duplicate for? Is this the link that you should follow?
I think so.
Because I don't always see that there. Sometimes I just see things as like, oh, this is a duplicate, and it's like, okay, it's a duplicate of what? Point me
Right.
to the.
Right. Yeah, it really should say it in that banner.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know why there's two separate banners. Uh, window on context menu. Return false. Oh. I don't like this.
So what's something that's doing
Okay. Okay.
mouse
Hmm.
down?
Hmm.
I wonder if mouse down is a.
Mouse down. Are you wondering if mouse down is an Ember event?
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, let's see what happens.
So let me send you the link to the event names. I've always meant to come back and like add just a little more detail to this section um, of the guides because for a long time I didn't know. I didn't know from reading this it needs a code block.
So I'm just
There
gonna.
may even be a really old issue open on it that I never found someone to help with.
So
Uh,
you sent me a thing.
yeah, I
What
did.
is this thing? Talk event names. Oh, it's guides. Oh, it's the new guides app.
The new guides.
My computer is having so much trouble
Your
right
com
now.
I think about this time uh of every live stream, your computer starts to keel over. Uh
God,
I wonder if parts of our videos are just like garbled because it's trying to stream, it's trying to do too much at once. Anyway, so these are the event lists where if you have a function in your component.js,
oh,
it will catch that event for the entire context of the component. So on my end of things, I have a component that all it has in it div with some text inside. And then in my component.js, I have a function called click, and clicking on the component, which currently consists of a single div, will trigger that action. So or I don't want to use the word action lightly. It will trigger that event
so
because it's not inside the actions hash.
so this one here, like what? Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
So it's
just
this
like
click
that.
one. So
Yep.
interestingly, I've got the I've got the chat open for the Twitch stream, and Robert
Yeah.
Jackson has noticed that I've got a bug in my code. So shout out to Robert Jackson. Thanks for that. But it's something
Nice.
that I noticed after you sent me those docs as well, where it's like I was expecting it to be just mouse down because of what people were showing here in the
Mm-hmm.
jQuery thing that we found. But it's one of those things where it's probably worth, if you come across something, just double checking, doing a quick search on the Ember guides to see if there's some indication of how to do this with Ember.
Right.
Because if you've never seen anything like this, like, and I know that these event names are there, and I always have to look them up anytime I'm using them. But like, if you didn't know they were there, it's worth trying to see if there's something that handles this in the guides, because there's a lot of stuff in the guides that's quite useful.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that we've got a click and a mouse down. And interesting, I wonder if it's like auto bubbling if we don't stop it. So we should get, if I left click, we should get two console logs, and if I right click, I should get a console log. Ooh, that's left click. Nice. Oh,
Okay.
look at that.
Wait, it's still oh,
So I
in addition to that menu, interesting.
so interesting. So we've got an event, but maybe this is where we have
Hmm.
to do the stop bubbling thing. Do you, is that documented here?
I don't think so.
Oh, return true.
Oh,
Double click.
innocent
Ooh.
to enable bubbling, return true. That implies that the default is false, but hmm, okay, interesting. Let's
You
give it a
may also
try.
stop. So it says earlier on, later on, you may stop things if you return false. So it's weird. It's like undefined is separate to false.
Hmm.
Weird.
Let me try this out here as well. Eh. Okay, that's my left click. Hmm. Let me check what's in the console. Nothing. Okay.
Do you have one that's similar to my
Ooh.
setup here as well?
A little bit, very, very, very simplified. So I skipped the table rows. Do any of those jQuery listeners? Uh, oh, but I did succeed. Hmm. I I did succeed in getting the default menu to go away.
How? What should you do?
Uh, well, I put it on a did insert element. Don't hate me. Uh, Let me try moving it
Oh, look.
into here.
There is a context menu event as
Did I
opposed
get?
to the mouse down one that we're using.
Oh man.
Let's
Hmm.
see if that does anything. God, events are so bizarre.
One time,
I did it.
so I work. Oh, you did it. How'd you do it?
So I moved it from being mouse down to being context menu. Let's see if you need
Oh,
to still return false.
no.
Because there's a context menu. I just noticed.
No,
I double
is
checked
there?
that docs. Yeah, the docs that you pointed out to me. There's a context menu on.
Oh, would you look at that? I would have never in a million years
Right.
guessed what context menu was for.
I only thought to look at it because they're doing that on context menu stuff, and a
Huh.
lot of these on whatever it's called map to the just the name on the like on right click or what or on double click or whatever is just double click here. But interestingly, you do need to return false. If you don't
Well,
return false, it shows the other context menu.
well, that is worthy of its own blog article, if you ask me.
Oh, that's
That's
brilliant.
very exciting. Oh, anyway, I was gonna say that events are so tricky that once upon a time, so I was working on a touch screen that had some unusual drivers that was running some weird Linux distribution. I don't even remember the details of it, but I could not get my touch and move events to fire. And with touchscreens, there's a question of whether it's a click event or it's a true touch event, and depending on what your setup is, it could be either, it could be both, and um, or it could be none of the above if your drivers aren't working at all. And so I made this special route that's still in kind of our sandbox app where I took the names of all of the click and mouse and touch handlers that exist, put them into an array, registered a click handler for each thing, and then printed the appended the results to the DOM so that I could touch it and see them all cascade and know which one it was. And that was how I figured out how to get this silly touchscreen working. The end.
Well, this is what like okay, I know nowadays a lot of people don't come into computer science or coding or whatever it is from a computer science degree, But this is
Yeah.
something like, even if you don't, just have computer science in your head and think of it in terms of experiments. You set up,
Mm-hmm.
you had a hypothesis that something is going to trigger, and you set up your experiment to see what is going to trigger, and then you checked. You looked at the empirical data. You ran the experiment, and then you were able to define that. No doubt, write a blog post if you were in the habit of writing blog posts at the time, to say, actually, I'm contributing to the knowledge for everybody else. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
we just spent a while experimenting here, because that's the best way sometimes. If you're stuck, if you're deep in your application where you've got all this stuff happening and you don't know if it's a jQuery thing, or if it's like whatever's going on here, try and extract the single thing that you're trying to ask into an app that's either working or not working on its own, and then you have two abilities there. You can actually uh, just turn this off. You can actually maybe solve your own problem because you boiled it down to its components, or you can share that repo and somebody else can check it out and then try and fix it. If you could do it on an Ember twiddle, that would be even better, so that people can just go to a URL and say, "Oh, this is the thing that you need to fix." But it's like, boiling it down has so many advantages that if you can do that, it's so worthwhile. Okay.
Yep. I wish that I had come to that idea much faster than I did. That was a learning lesson. I was a couple hours in by the time I did that, but uh,
So
Grace, remind me, I am trying to figure out where the chat is on Twitch because I want to look at it and make sure there's no one else giving us hot tips. But
so
I cannot find it. I
if
can
you
never find it.
if you go to the Twitch/Relate, it should be on the
Yeah.
right hand side. It should just be beside the video,
Oh, I clicked on videos all. And
on
then,
the live
okay.
version or whatever, and then there should be a little cog in the bottom right of it, or bottom left, sorry, and you should be able to click pop out.
Clicked on the cog, pop out player. That's really strange that that's how you get to chat. Okay.
Yeah, the whole
Uh,
thing's mad. Or I could show you. I don't know if I can show you because I've already popped it out.
hmm. That's okay. I'll figure it out.
But yeah, we
I still do
shout out
not
to all the.
see chat. So if you can keep an eye.
Yeah, we've like I said, we had Robert Jackson and Siva's joining us as well.
Yay. All right. Anyway, if you can just keep an eye on it because apparently I cannot find where the chat is. I've never found it. We've been doing this for 6 weeks, but I've never seen the Twitch chat.
This is
Gonna
we'll
have
we'll be pros eventually.
I need to talk to our friends, our Ember pals who are at Twitch and inform them that I can't find it. I'm trying so
Oh
hard.
god.
Anyway, carry on. So we did the thing,
So we did the
sort of.
thing. Well, this is kind of where we're in a little bit of a bind, where it's like, what do we, what we're answering is dependent on what they're trying to achieve. Now, I know
Yep,
this. I
yep.
know there's not a situation here like uh, an explanation on this particular answer, but on the other answer, the right click answer, they had a picture. So the
Mm-hmm.
point here seems to be that they want to pop up something when they right click. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if they want to do that, they probably should use context menu on a component
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and make sure that they return false so that it doesn't show up the window context menu or whatever.
Yep.
Um, oh, that's interesting. Do you know what that also means?
What?
So if we right click here, it doesn't show the context menu. But if you right click down here, it does,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's only this one that's capturing
Yep.
it. So you're not turning
Yep.
off the context menu for your entire app. This is really
Yep.
neat. That's really nice. I like that.
Glory of scoped event things
Yeah.
and components is like they only apply to the component and just sort of, amazingly you get this behavior where the event that you've defined, or in this case, this is almost like a configuration that you've defined, only applies to that part of your app, which is so nice because can you imagine if you're working on a very large dashboard app
Mm.
with a bunch of other developers, which a lot of people use Ember for dashboard apps and things like that,
Hmm.
and the right click, you haven't worked on it in a while, you open it up, and all of a sudden, you can't right click to inspect the app in the console, and you're trying to figure out how did this happen and who did it. It could be pretty tough if it was applying to your whole application.
Yeah.
But with this, now you'd be like, oh, why doesn't right click? You start clicking around in other places. Oh, here it is. You can write, then you realize it's only something that's on this one part of my app, that's part of this one component, and you open up that component JavaScript file and here it is. And so when I think about we always say like Ember is great for productivity, sort of the scoping that's baked in
Mm.
is something that can save a lot of pain.
And this is one of those things where it's like, as experienced Ember developers, we know how much pain that this saves. But
Mm-hmm.
that this situation is never one that we answer as should I use Ember or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not
Mm-hmm.
you don't go into a mad conversation about, oh, in that case where one of your developers does something that, whatever. Like that seems so abstract or whatever. But there's 100 of cases like these, like hundreds of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this
Mm-hmm.
way it makes it easier, this way it makes it easier, this way it makes it easier. And it's not any one of those things, which is one of the reasons it's quite hard to say why should I use Ember. But it's all of those things put together, like and they're cumulative as well. It's like the amount of productivity that you get by just kind of adding those things together is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
By the way, I do have to run soonish, not immediately.
okay.
Just heads up.
So the question that I was kind of getting at there was,
Yeah.
have we answered his question by figuring out the right clickness of it? Because there's other stuff that he's trying to do here, or they are trying to do here, that I don't quite understand. Like, we've got the
Mm.
event, and this is interesting. It's like this dot get object or whatever. Um, yeah, I'm not.
Pulling in the focus.
This dot get click row.
They've done something with the context menu. So when
Oh, that's
I
true. They did.
I
Event
completely overlooked
default.
that. Because I didn't know the context menu was an important thing.
That's true. I thought this was
Uh,
like a function name or
or like a
something like that.
class or
Yes,
uh
exactly.
even though it would have a period in front. So one thing that my I'm kind of instinctively reading into this is sort of they want something to pop up in a particular place. And so I wonder if it would be useful to demonstrate, like in the right click event that we have, you know, um, check check to see if it's a right click in our example. So
Hmm.
we're console logging the event. The event has I think the event has an attribute called button or something
Well, this is the
with a
thing.
0 or 1,
Yeah, so
and then based on that.
that's the left click, but we don't need to do that. Button 0, but we don't need to do that when it's a right click. I'm right clicking now, so
Oh,
just right
it's fine.
clicked because the context menu. This is context menu,
Yeah.
so it's a
Oh,
different. It's a
see. I
different.
see. I see.
I suppose we could
Okay.
check that the button is, but it only ever shows up when you right click.
If it, yeah, if it's caught by context menu, then that doesn't matter. But anyway, what I was thinking was maybe we show or hide. We use the context menu function to uh, show or hide something.
So,
Ooh, actually, this is tough, isn't it?
I
Wait,
yes,
is this hard? This is hard.
yes, maybe potentially, but we can use Ember to our advantage, I think. So,
Okay.
the first thing that I'm noticing here is that they're like getting the closest table or any of this stuff or whatever. But what we would need to do here is that we would probably want to show context menu for this row here. You know what I mean? And what we would do there is we would go, let's go. What would we do? We'd probably do it. I like to get out of anything that's like actions or whatever quite quickly, so that you have something that's like your. I suppose it doesn't really make too much of a difference because we're already on the component here, but it's like, I suppose this is just a style thing. But essentially what comes in when you're showing a context for event, I'm just doing short mode here, which we can do here as well, which doesn't make too much of a difference. When you're showing context for event, then what we want to do is we want to do this dot set show context menu true. Okay. And then in the table row, we can have something that's like if show context menu if I'm just going to do this, then we're going to do, I don't know, div class equals context menu, because you've got nice little things to make it float and be the right place or whatever. And we'll put in a location stuff in here as well. Hello from item.name. Okay, so I'm kind of showing, an interim step before I get into the thing that I really wanted to do.
Oh. Side note, I found the chat.
Oh, Chris, nice.
But I cannot add a chat because this it says this room is in 1 day followers only mode. Follow this channel to join the community. So,
what does that mean?
I think it's an anti-troll thing that has trolled us.
Does that mean that you don't follow me on Twitch?
Oh, we've only ever done this together, so.
Okay. So.
Oh, I don't know how to do things. Anyway, carry on. Actually, I should leave.
Okay.
Soon.
So.
Do you want to carry on without me? And I always do this to you. I always leave you with the half-finished answer. I'm going to try to follow up tomorrow.
That's okay. Can I just explain this? I don't know how exactly many minutes you've got left, but it's like, I want to get your opinion as to whether or not.
1 minute. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so I've done a thing where it's like I'm showing context menu. This is just on the component, and then in the in the component, I've got this thing where if we're showing the context menu, you do a thing. So I was going to, as my next step. Have you ever used Wormhole, Ember Wormhole?
Yeah.
I was going to, instead of this context menu, this div, which is now currently, I can't right click on it because it's in a, instead of the div being in the table and in the table row, you'd have something that would be like top level. You'd be putting it into the, you'd be rendering it into the wormhole somewhere, and then you would get, I don't know if we're still console logging it, but when we do context menu, you can see where the X and Y is. So you would also show you would like set the top and left. Is that right? I can never remember which one X and Y is, but you'd set top and left to be X and Y, and then that would then be able to show the box in the right place.
Oh,
seems
that's nice.
If you think that's a good idea, then I will continue to try and make that work.
I think I think that is a good idea as well for a future blog post. Just FYI. I'm into this. Well, so here's the thing: is like these kinds of patterns with the X and Y, and if someone hasn't used Wormhole is a way to render content somewhere else in the DOM while still controlling it from a different component. Is how I would describe it.
Mhm.
So like a modal or something like that. Uh, but this kind of pattern and ability, um, this is the kind of thing that you get into if you are trying to build web apps that look and feel like native apps. You
Yes.
have to be able to do things like, oh, if I right click on this, a panel slides out from somewhere else. Um, and if you're like me and you think that web apps are the future and that very few things will need to be native apps, which is actually how most people use native apps on their phones and things right now. We all have a very, very small number of native apps that we use, but we have maybe hundreds of websites that we
Hmm.
use. Um, I think web apps are where things are going, which means if you want to still have some of that fluid, magical um, behavior like you get in a lot of phone apps, you got to figure out how to do it in HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So, anyway, I have to go catch my bus to work. But before I run away, I am going to be working on a blog post where we'll wrap up some of the things that Chris and I learned over the course of this experiment. And we'll be sending it around to a couple people for feedback as well. Um, so stay tuned for that. And I will uh, catch you later.
Awesome. See you later, Jen.
Bye.
Bye. Window capture. There we go. Right. Now there was only one. So anybody who is watching, shout out what you can while I'm trying to develop this on my own. Okay, so the thing that I wanted to do was add Ember wormhole. Ooh, Yap Labs, nice. Right, so Ember wormhole to destination. Wormhole destination. Right, so I'm sure there's a. That's interesting. It's at the bottom, but it's always the same. Let me do a Ember install Ember wormhole. Thanks, Barry. I'm still trying to get used to the emojis on here. There's no ta-da. Right, okay. Wormhole is installed. Pim start, and then I think there's something up here that gives the quick start, because we're just doing a quick one for now. So it's like we're doing here, destination, and then we're going to put it in the application template, so it's outside the table. And there was something like this, where I had a wormhole. Nope, table row. We would put this thing in here. Right. Woo. It's interesting that it's just adding them all into the wormhole. So we probably need to add something that removes them instead of just continuously adding them. But that's not really the thing that I want to do quite yet. I want to do something where it's like where we have like a style or something. Oh, Don't leave me on my own with CSS. Position absolute, and then we want top to be X, Y. I think top is Y. Y, and then left is X. Now, I'll save the explanation to until after I get this right. Set X to be Y to be event dot client Y. This is what I was trying to do. What do we got? This is interesting. It's because the destination weird. I think it's like something stupid like you have to do. Oh, what's wrong with this? Valid. Oh, pixels. Ah, no, this is it. PX. That's why I say don't leave me with CSS on my own. Oh, that's great. I love it. Interesting. So what you would do in this case is we'd have like, let's just throw it in app CSS. So we'd have dot context menu would have a background color of white, I don't know, and then border. It's not going to help me. Something silly like this. Oh, and then it's like border style. It's a normal one. Solid. Oh, there we go. And then we probably have something that had like max width or something. Or just set a width to be 20px, I don't know. Again, don't leave them in style. Let's do 50 pixels. So we'd have this, what looks like essentially a like a right click and something shows up and says from the second one. So we know it's the right one. First one and the third one. Okay. So we have this situation where now we've got a bunch of stuff. We don't need this code because this was the kind of older way to do it. So we have this situation where we have an event. Actually, just 1 second. Oh, timestamps. Didn't I do that? Just looking at the chat. I don't know how to get the chat to actually ping me when it says something, make noise. Oh well. Right, so we've got this. Now, we probably have to have something that when you click one of these, it unsets the other ones, which is a bit of a weird situation. Like the simplest thing that I can think of is something along the lines of like mouse leave. But I don't think this is going to give us what we want. Because technically the mouse goes into the excuse me, this thing here when you right click. But maybe what we want to do is we do this, the mouse leave that I just did, but like in this context menu thing, maybe. I'm going to make it a component just to make it as nice as possible. Ember.js component context menu. Context menu. Nope, wrong place again. And this time I am actually going to use the name. Hope that it doesn't break anything, because I just don't want a div to go in here, especially when it's actually not. It's not even like rendering in place. It's rendering somewhere else anyway. So we just don't want it to even show up. So now we've got our context menu. So it's context menu, I think I created. Then I'm going to item equals item. But then we want it. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Why did that happen? So let me get rid of this thing, because we're not going to do that here anyway. Let's see what's going on. Oh, X and Y. Right, so it's not the item that has the X and Y. It's the table X equals X, Y equals Y. Whee, look at that. Oh, we need the item as well. God. Perfect. So what I wanted it to do is when you move your mouse out of here, it gets rid of it tells the parent component to not show that context menu anymore. So this is where I'm actually going to do it as an action, an Ember action, instead of these mad actions, these mad jokes. Ooh. Blur rather than mouse leave. I'll have a look at what the difference is between this and blur. Hey, why not draw? Thanks for joining us. Don't know what that crown beside your name means. Twitch Prime, cool. Whatever that is. Actions, I want to close context menu, and the close context menu does this. So by doing this, we're able to pass in so this means that now when we're in here, we can actually call close context menu in the table row, which is nice. Let's see if that works the way we expect it to. Table row. Let's cut this one. Context menu, yeah. So it's not this.set. We're actually going to be calling that action as a function, which is nice. So we're going to do this. Oh, did we break something? We did. Fun. This is exactly the sorts of things that we were worried about. Did I say this wrong? Let's try what Parry suggested. To blur. Let's see a blur one here. This one's a little bit strange. Oh, okay. So problem here is that it's never entering because it's actually somewhere else. Because it's off here in destination. I think what we would need to do is do this slightly differently. We would do this in here. We wouldn't be able to do, not able to do the wormhole in here. We're going to have to do this here. It's fine. Table row. I'm going to put the wormhole back in here. Oh, that's what I like. So you can do stuff in here once you right clicked, but as soon as you leave, it goes away. Like that may not be the desired behavior, but it's something that will stop it from having multiple things open. It's one of those ones where maybe if you did, maybe if you made it animate out of your thing, out of your mouse, and then animated away once you left, it would seem less jarring. So go back into the top left. Just an idea. Right, okay, so that's that. That works. It's a bit of a mad example, but it works. I'll see. Oh, I see Parry's saying that blur isn't a Ember component thing. Yeah, I think that is a jQuery specific thing, which means it's not even like a DOM API. So it's not. There should be a DOM on blur. I'm pretty sure there is. On blur. But I thought blur was when something isn't. Yeah. When it's lost focus. So that would be like if you're tabbing through. I suppose this, this is a kind of a what's the word? This is a really basic example. I'm not sure I would recommend anybody use this for a production application, but it exercises some of the things that you might need to do something very similar to this. One thing I would always recommend looking at is basic drop down. Remember basic drop down, which will probably have a much better API than anything we've just done. But essentially, it's like you click a thing, and we no doubt make it work on a right click. And they might even have something in the docs for a right click. But you click a thing, and it deals with all of those issues. Oh, it might even deal with clicking away for you. That would be quite nice if it did. Yeah. So the example that we put together today explains the issue, but it's always worth looking to see if somebody else has put this together for you in a way that works really nicely in Ember. And if you've not used any of the basic drop down or basic, I'm sure it has add-ons. Yeah, this is like a series of add-ons made by Miguel Camba that they're just like they are used almost or power. That's what they are. They're power calendar, power whatever. But they are a series of add-ons that are used by a lot of people in the Ember community, and they, as you can probably see, they look very similar sort of design. But this is using basic drop-down add-ons. Oh, there we go. So there's a whole bunch of add-ons that Miguel makes, and I would highly recommend them. Okay, anyway, that I think concludes our show for today. Like Jen said, watch out for the kind of wrap-up blog post. We might have a bit of information on there on how we may or may not proceed with this thing. But if you liked what we've done, give us some feedback. Reach out to me on Twitter, talk to me on the Ember Slack, whatever it is. Leave some comments on here. I don't even know if you can comment on Twitch, if it's like after the fact. But we're also on YouTube as well. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Bye.